a Jaiket.
Why?
Realised what the date was there. So, hi, Nori. Welcome
Hi,
back. And
Gordon.
we have got a lot of breaking news stories today.
Well, not breaking, but they've been out there, and it's worthwhile talking about them. Craig Murray defecting to your party. We'll talk
Yeah,
about that. There's the case of the immigrants coming to Inverness. There's a lot of local concern here about that. Um,
yeah, can
and one of the things, Gordon, I was talking about a speech I gave at a meeting last week was the housing that's going up in our area. And I've
yeah,
done a wee bit of research on who owns Springfield, and it's frightening. And the rate of libertarianism that's spreading across Scotland is at a frightening pace. And we have to do something about it. We'll talk about that later as well. But first, if I can get into the comments about what people are saying on last week's show, see what you think.
sure.
There's a more political parties cannot go to the UN. Only People's Movement can go to the UN, says Tam. We're making the point that we have to get behind those
Yeah,
movements. That was all. And political parties should get behind those movements. It's not them going.
yeah,
Uh,
they definitely should be.
there's a couple of crackers. Lorna says, completely agree with Nori. I was just quoting Alf, so it's not really me, but I was mentioning Alf Baird about the welcoming attitude towards those economic migrants, talking about coming here from across the border. More and more, I see TV shows and social network reels showing the beauty of Scotland and talking about how friendly and welcoming we are. It concerns me that the majority of these taking part in these shows do not have Scottish accents. I suspect that all of this is no coincidence. Colonisation at its best, and that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Hmm,
Wow, I think that
observation.
there's a lot of truth in that.
Oh,
Be,
absolutely. I think so.
yeah, be careful about who's coming up here, who's staying here, and who's putting their roots down here. I always say this, Gordon. You become more, even us Scots, if we go to Canada and stay there, we become more Scottish. We want to show ourselves as who we really are. We're not Canadian. We're not.
Yeah,
And what
it's
that's exactly what England does when they come to Scotland. They
it's
can't help
natural.
themselves. They
No, it's
cannot help themselves.
yeah, yeah, for people to do this. But to be fair, and we're always talking about trying to be fair. I get a lot of comments from English people who've moved here and completely embraced the whole Scottish way of life, including a lot of their political outlook as well. And they don't like being lumped in, if you like, with the England as Britain brigade, if you like, who claim that Scotland's just a part of Britain. They don't see it that way, and
Well,
they like it being Scotland and being Scottish. So there are a number of English migrants who come up here genuinely because they want to be Scottish.
as
But
long as as long,
yeah,
Gordon, as they see what we see, and that's the colonisation of our country, if they can't see that and they keep saying, "Well, I'm Scottish. I want to be here. I like it here. It's a great place." I don't care. If
well,
you can't see that we're being colonised, and if you struggle against that,
like
you're just
your
another
your
person.
your previous letter that came in from that young lady, was it Lorna? Did you say her name was?
Lorna, yeah.
Yeah, Lorna. What Lorna was saying was an observation that a lot of people have made, which is that these programs about the beauty of Scotland and the welcoming nature of the people in the Highlands and all this stuff. Most of the people interviewed do have English accents. They have settled. They've opened shops, they've opened hotels, they've settled in, and it's always those voices you hear, and it's definitely messaging, subtle messaging through the BBC that Scotland is English, it's part of England, and that most of the people in Scotland are just like English people. They speak with
Yes, but
English accent.
I
It
think
gives
what
the
she's
wrong
trying to say,
impression.
I think what she's trying to say, Gordon, is we've got to be careful. We've got to be really careful because our culture is being watered down so much. And we said it last week. We should be speaking Gaelic to each other, but we're not. We're speaking English because that colonisation and that influx of people. Alf Baird, I'll go back to his book, says 10 years residency, then you get a vote. I don't care if you've been here 5 years and you say, I'm very Scottish, I'm just like you. Nah, 10 years, because subconsciously you're still English. You don't even know it, but yeah, because I'll tell you why. Because when England start playing their football, you'll go and click on the channel to see your old country. It's normal. That's what you do. That's what you do. But you can't bring your politics. So if you can bring your football jersey out, damn right you can bring your politics out as well. And that's what we're worried about.
It's keeping the two separated. That's the issue.
It's. Can you imagine me or you moving down to England?
Yeah.
We would not stop talking about how good Scotland is.
No, of course not. No.
That's what happens. That's what happens. Patrick Kavanagh Martin, another. He says Russia is far from done or without money. Our media want us to think it. I'd like to hear more about the US coup in 2014 from media to educate us that the West aren't the good guys. Donald Trump, etc. You're right. Russia isn't either, but it's not quite as bad as America. But, you pays your money, he takes your choice, on that one, I guess.
I have some views on Russia which are kind of balanced, because I have Russian family, extended family in Russia, and ancestry from Russia. But my impression from relatives is that most of the people who live in Russia, and one of my relatives lives in Moscow, and she's an academic, by the way. She's a university lecturer. And her take on it was that most Russian people are too scared to speak out against the president, because the president has all the power. It's not a democracy.
Yeah, it's
and
not.
So people have the wrong idea. They think that there is a democracy in Russia that works. There's a theatrical version of democracy that plays out, but it's heavily stacked, and it always produces the same result. So don't be too fooled into thinking Russia is a democracy. It's not. And also, your early comment about Russia not running out of money is probably true. Russia has many sources of income. It still has a lot of friends in other countries, notably places like Brazil, Venezuela, also in China.
China.
The Chinese are very much more diffident and a lot more ambivalent towards what Russia is doing. They don't condone it, what they're doing in Ukraine, but at the same time, they don't also object to it, if you see what I mean. So they're taking a neutral stance. So they still have friends, they still have access to money from abroad, but I would think most notably China. India seems to have backed off a bit, though.
Aye.
So Russia will last maybe another year or two before its economy really starts to have troubles, I think.
We did mention on the show a few weeks ago that there American academics, let's say, call them that, were saying that look out for a American-Russian get together. The Bering Straits could be the conduit that connects them. One's got oil, one needs it, one can supply it, and at that point, weapons get transferred as well. It's a scary old world, Gordon. We don't know the next moves. The tectonic plates are shifting, and we have no idea what's going on behind closed doors.
Well, you may be right, because both Russia and the United States have got economic problems. They're being rapidly overtaken by the developing nations like China in terms of global power. I don't mean power in weaponry. I mean power economic. And so it almost would make sense for Trump and Putin to do some kind of handshake deal to solidify what's left of their own power, and produce a new power bloc, if you like, across the very northern part of the hemisphere.
Right. We've already seen Trump has stopped funding the Ukraine. Every other country is still pumping money in to get the war, but Trump's a bit of an oddbod. He doesn't like war. He believes that money should be staying in America. And the money men are against him. The guys that pull his strings are saying to him, if you don't come up to scratch, you are going to be under the cosh from the Epstein papers.
Trump has a very simplistic view of politics, and it's based on friendships with other leaders. It's not based on any kind of political knowledge on his part. If he thinks Putin's a nice guy and Putin treats him nicely, he will treat Putin nicely, and he will not help Ukraine in any way. And he's already shown that that's his attitude. So I don't think
Uh,
that.
Donald Trump is after one person to protect, and that's Donald Trump. And I tell you, he'll bat away all these allegations that are going to come out at some
Yeah.
point, and that'll bring him down. And then after that, we have to wait and see what will happen in America. We'll have to see where the players and everything
Listen,
shifts.
just while we're talking about Trump, before we leave that topic, did you notice what the royal family said yesterday about Prince Andrew? He's being stripped of all his titles. He's just going to be called Andrew Windsor now. And
That's
this
not
is,
even his real name.
yeah, it's his real name, but he's not going to be Prince Andrew. He's not going to be anything of anything. He's not going to be Lord. He's not going to be a Duke. He's basically been stripped of his royal title. He's been kicked out the royal family officially. And Charles is funding him a new gaff somewhere in London to live in.
Aye.
Kicked out the
Oh,
palace.
we'll get to that in a minute. God, there's a crack. I'll get through this correspondence because it's a shame not to mention some people. The Prince Table, great show as always, guys. I look forward to my Friday evening to catch up with you. Earlier this week, I tried to visit the British Consul General to ask in person their thoughts on Liberation Scotland's submission and subsequent presentation to the UN. I sent them an email a few months ago, no response. It arrived, but I was told by the concierge I could only see them with an appointment. They have blocked my phone number, so I can't make an appointment. My email to them was polite. It simply asked the aforementioned question. I then stood outside in the street handing out flyers with a positive response from most people who initially were going to refuse a flyer, but when they saw the headline, Scotland is a colony, they stopped and took one. Yesterday in a cafe, I met two Quebecois and an Irish woman. When I mentioned I was a member of Liberation Scotland, they were all so positive. Keep up the great work, Stuart.
Right.
You cannot get into the UN. It's closed off. This is what even I've tried to email and find out what's going on. Nothing.
Well, the British consulate does not want anybody knowing that anything is coming from Scotland to the UN at all. And they especially will not give it any oxygen at all, or they will not acknowledge it's even happening, in much the same way that our political parties in Holyrood do. They just will not acknowledge it.
No, they
Because
won't.
they want it known that somebody other than politicians is actually making moves on Scotland's behalf.
Well, Rachel Taylor says Drumnadrochit used to be the loveliest village, and now it's been turned into a housing scheme. They built that small shop area, I know what you're talking about, Rachel, with a new co-op and a chippy. She stopped there the last two times she was passing by.
Yep.
The chippy was closed. It is. And she went to the co-op and it was awful. They had nothing and they charged the earth for it. Prices are going up.
Yeah.
Stock's going down. This is what we're living in, Gordon.
Yeah, somebody also messaged me about Drumnadrochit and was pointing out that nobody with wealth is going to want to buy a £450,000 house that's overlooked by all these other crackerbox houses around it. So that was another interesting take. Nobody wants to buy the houses who does have the money to buy them because they're close together.
I've got some research, Gordon, but it's just not enough time in this show. But maybe next week or the week after. I've been doing some research on who owns these companies that are building all these houses. And the facts will absolutely amaze you. And you'll be thinking, what the hell? But that's for next week or the week after. Got lots of stuff in that. Tam says, how many times in a show do I have to mention Alf Baird? Well, Alf Baird writes some great stuff, you know. I can't help it, Tam. That's how it goes. And sometimes these people don't get enough airspace, Gordon, the Alf Bairds and the people like that. Why don't we just give it to them?
No, it's worth pointing out to some of these naysayers and doubters about Alf Baird that he's a professor, Alf Baird, retired now. But he's an incredibly knowledgeable guy.
Yeah.
And he's written books, many, not just one, he's written more than one book. And he is one of the few people I know who has been able to pin down exactly what Scotland's current position is.
Well, hold that thought, Gordon, because we'll come back to that after the correspondence. Special Candle Trust this is another one of these ones, Gordon. Once again, a great show. Europe are definitely gearing up for war. Their media mentions it quite a lot. And what's frightening is a drip process making it sound normal or inevitable. I can remember, Gordon, I was very, very young when Britain went to the Falklands, created a war. And that was drip, 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 drip. And all of a sudden, bang,
Well, not
24-hour news, 2 o'clock in
like
the
you.
morning, waking me up
Yeah,
to Radio Scotland. War.
I was quite young when that happened as well, but I was a bit older than you. And two of my friends actually took part in the Falklands campaign in the Navy. They both came back safely, luckily. But I remember the shock of that, thinking in 1982, how did we end up going to war with Argentina, of all countries, miles away from us, over a tiny set of islands, that are about the size of, what, the Isle of Wight, two of them, and all
Yeah.
because. But what struck me at the time, and it became very obvious very quickly, was that Margaret Thatcher knew that the Argentines were invading it ages before it was announced, and they
Yeah.
let it happen. So there
Yeah.
could be a war, and it boosted Thatcher's popularity, and she got in the next election on the back of a wave of British flag waving about how brilliant Britannia was.
It's,
So it's political. It's not just defence. It's a
no, you're
political.
right, Gordon. There's two things in that. I remember looking back when I was at university, we were looking at past prime ministers and things and
Yeah.
what made them good and what failed them.
Hmm.
And Thatcher was on the way down. She was on the way down. There was minor strikes. There was steel men out. The police were getting more control. So it was brutal, and she had to do something quick. And
Yep.
that's what people. That's what prime ministers do. They're advised to take the shine off the home affairs and take it foreign.
Everybody, divert your
Yeah,
attention from the real problem to something else. Yeah.
a created problem, right?
Yep.
And then you've got Tony Blair, who was really, really up against it. Went to Iraq. Then you've
Yes.
got Keir. They taking all that. What we know about where the British government will go when they're in trouble. Keir Starmer is now polling at -50. It's the lowest number of a prime minister ever. Where do you
Yeah.
think he's going to go? Why do you think we're preparing for, you know, all kinds of things without any money?
Well, it wouldn't take much to spark a war because the way things are at the moment, British Storm Shadow missiles were used last week for
Yep.
the first time on Russian soil to hit
Yes.
Russian targets. Now that will not have gone unnoticed at the Kremlin. That the
Correct.
British off, and these little incremental movements closer and closer to actual involvement are what Starmer is doing. Really, he's inching us gradually towards it, and the warmongers, the actual military complex that manufactures weapons in the UK, are probably happy about that because their
Yeah.
pricing, their takings are going to go up and up and up as more and more of these weapons are made and used
Cha-ching. Yep. Exactly.
because they can't be reused. Once they've exploded, they're in bits. So got to make more.
That's right.
That's
That's it
the
in a nutshell, Gordon. It's a
yeah,
continuum. Once you've used them, you've got to create more and you've got to sell them. And
yep.
they're easy to make. They've been making these bombs and drones, and now you can get a specially fitted drone that can carry weights and drop them on specific targets like a house or a pipeline or anything sophisticated. And they want to sell them. They couldn't sell them for good, Gordon. They couldn't sell them for look at drones going over the Amazon rainforest. Look at the desolation and desecration that's happened there. What can we
Yeah.
do? No, it's to create more of that and more of that because these people only think in profit. They only think profit.
Well, you'll recognise that Venezuela recently signed an agreement with Russia, a friendship agreement on trade between
Aye.
Venezuela and Russia, and instantly half of the American Navy has appeared off the Venezuelan coast, armed to the teeth with all sorts of cruise missiles, aircraft, you name it, ready to do something. It's teetering. It really is. The brinkmanship is quite scary. And despite all the saber rattling about these fancy nuclear-powered cruise missiles that Putin claims to have, it doesn't matter because the conventional nuclear missiles that both sides have got will work just as well and better probably, and they're a hell of a lot quicker and cheaper. So the
Yeah,
question,
before we get distracted from all that, Gordon, I'll get back to the correspondence because TJ Martin's, this is a really good one as well. He says he had an SNP MP at his door 2 days ago, David Barrett, Annabelle Ewing is retiring, and I gave him a mouthful. I told him exactly that you have and others have. The SNP is a busted flush. He mentioned Catalonia in the conversation. I said to him, Scotland is a country, not a region. He was saying that the SNP government can take us to independence, but like I said, they have had that chance every election, and with a majority have done nothing. They have no spine, no backbone. Swinney says he can ask for a Section 30, but what's a plan B? I asked about the independence MP in Holyrood, who is in charge now. That was Jamie Hepburn. He's not there anymore. He's not an independence minister. He's at another department. So it shows where independence is on the SNP list. I asked him about Salvo. He said he went to the Salvo meeting in Dalgety Bay. So I asked him, where does the SNP stand with Salvo? Up with nothing.
Silence. That's no.
Yeah, he did. He mentions that I told them they will now not get my votes, that Liberate Scotland will, and ISP will get my and my family's votes. Thank you very much, DJ Martin. We're seeing more and more of this, Gordon. And it's good that you speak to SNP candidates and ask them, because as soon as you ask them something, that sticks in their head. They'll take that back to their headquarters. They'll take that back to their people. And before you know it, they'll have to reappraise what they're doing, what they're saying, and where they're going.
Yeah,
and if we do that, if everybody does what I'll get his name again, DJ Martin does, and question the SNP candidates, then we, the people, can insert that power, because they have to listen, because they need our votes. Keep asking difficult questions.
They need to answer those questions, and if they can't, they're not going to get a vote.
Correct.
I received an email the other day from a young woman who said that you and I do nothing but SNP bashing. I said, well, look at it this way. If the SNP was actually doing what it's supposed to do, which is to get us independence, and quickly, it would have done so years ago. It's had about 6 opportunities, 6 mandates in 2 different parliaments to do it, and hasn't taken the opportunity on any of these occasions. So why should we believe them now? You know, after 6 failed opportunities to do it, and they still haven't done it. Why should we believe them a 7th time?
God, wee story, but a wee story up here about Scotland played Ireland at the Shinty hurling competition. It's an international. It was at Buck Park. Ladies were on first and the guys were on after. Great day out. One guy was there presenting the medals, John Swinney. You couldn't even notice him. He was like the local bank manager. He was keeping himself quiet. Nobody. Do you know this? If this was Burkina Faso and Ibrahim Traore was there at their local event giving out medals, there'd be 20, 30,000 in that wee stadium looking to get that unique moment where they saw their leader, the guy they treasure, trust. Nothing.
Well,
if you think, can I just say this, Gordon? If you think John Swinney, and to those people who criticise us for criticising the SNP, do you think John Swinney is doing a really good job in galvanise people when people don't even recognise him at a big event? People are just turning away from him. Do you think that's a leader? Wake up, wise up, and get real. For goodness sake.
I was just going to say, Nori, you know, if you find yourself being kept awake by these thoughts at night, watch a 20-minute segment of John Swinney at Holyrood, and I guarantee you'll be asleep within 5 minutes.
I know. It's the best insomniac cure ever.
He's got to be the most boring and charismatically challenged person I have ever seen in a political leadership role. He's got nothing going for him, really. He just, as you say, looks like a bank manager, sounds like a bank manager, and who loves
Acts like
bank
a bank
managers?
manager, you know.
Yeah.
John, get
So,
back to amicable insurance. You were never designed to be a politician, but where?
no,
How did he get chosen from way back then to be where he is now?
because
Unbelievable.
they wanted somebody to manage Scotland in this small scale, this little fishbowl that we live in. And that's his job. His job is to micromanage the little things in Scotland. He doesn't
That's
have
right.
anything to do. It's all to do with gender recognition reform, tweaking little bits of local legislation, and largely meaningless, really, in terms of a national leader. He's
Do you
not
know,
a national.
I'll give you an example of this, Gordon. Up here in the Highlands, Stagecoach are selling off their company to a European bidder, and I tell you what, the state of the buses is going down. The cost of drivers coming in and then leaving because the paying conditions are awful. That means you've got less and less services up here in the Highlands in the buses. Yet the
Yeah.
SNP are going, oh, free buses for everybody. There ain't no buses because there ain't no drivers because the drivers are getting paid peanuts
Do you
and
know
they're
it's
all leaving. They can't afford to take that job.
it's a
Unbelievable.
terrible irony, Norrie, that Stagecoach was originally a Scottish firm. If I remember correctly, it was founded in Dundee. Is that right?
Perth. Perth.
And it was a local guy that founded that company. And it was fantastic when it set up because it did low fares anywhere across Scotland from city to city, town to town. And now look at it, sold on to some big faceless European investment corporation of some sort. It's not going to do anything anymore. It's just going to become another one of those bought out companies that's no longer Scottish.
Gordon, we've got to be careful here. We don't look back with rose-coloured spectacles at this company. This company lowered their prices right down so the competition couldn't compete. When the competition was either bought over or had to pull out of the market, the prices went back up again.
Of course, cutthroat business. Aye.
And that's what I can't remember his name, but his sister was Gloag. That's that. I don't know why that name sticks in my head, but
Probably got a knighthood by now.
oh, aye. Listen, the British state puts in a war, footing to galvanise the falling state. Quite right, Richard. That's what we've been talking about. Same as the housing is probably for the extra illegal migrants. He didn't know that there was going to be news coming. Well done, Richard. Dumped to water the vote down. They will be happy to lose a few troops to help Scotland rather than give up the cash cow. Listen, Scots weren't born yesterday. That's what he's saying. Rachel
No,
Taylor, Maggie Thatcher, Falklands
no,
War.
we're not stupid.
No, it's a well-known fact that the Falklands War saved Thatcher. We've talked about that. I'm from Skye and I was working in Edinburgh then, and the number of people that asked me how close my home to where the war was going to be, they all thought the Falklands were in the Western Isles. Nobody knew about the Falklands. That was the problem. Where are they?
That's hilarious. Is this guy's from Edinburgh that thought that?
It's Rachel. She's from Skye, but she lives in Edinburgh now.
But she's saying that people in Edinburgh didn't realise that the Falkland Islands weren't off the west coast of Scotland.
Aye. It doesn't say,
Oh,
but they all thought the Scotlands were in the Western Isles. Nobody had heard of the Falklands, but nobody knew about where they are. Maggie Thatcher was on the way to the Hallows. She sent her navy to save a British colony none of us knew existed. Did you know about the Falklands? I didn't. And she saved them, was cheered, and all those lives lost saved that witch's job. Remember the Belgrano. Yeah.
yeah. Yes, the Falklands, why the British state needed to keep them, I don't know. I think it was just one of those things that they took them over, didn't know what to do with them. And by the time they'd actually thought about it, the islanders had become sort of little Britain over there. They regarded themselves as a
Flag
little.
waving. Just flag
Yeah,
waving.
you can't, when you've got islanders who've been there for generations, they see it as their own place, naturally. But technically, it's so close to Argentina. I mean, it really ought
Propaganda.
to have been an Argentinian island, and the history of it actually was written by my aunt in Russia. She wrote the book on the history of the Malvinas Falkland Islands back in 1983 to explain
Wow.
how it came about. It's a fascinating story. It was
Do you know-
discovered by both the Spanish and the British at different times.
Yeah, it's a unique history. But do you know what the best thing out of that was, Gordon, that the Scotland's public started buying Argentina football tops in a response.
Yeah,
This is again. You cannot calculate the amount of people that want Scottish independence by polls. You've got to do it by how they act and what they respond to
oh,
in
lost
life.
your sound there, no.
What they do is they react. The Scottish people react to things and show their displeasure and show their animosity to something and say, we're not, because we
We're
can win
losing sound a wee
Argentina.
bit.
I'm
Yeah,
losing you, Gordon. But I think it's your end.
could be. I'm just moving the car a little bit away from the trees here. Hopefully, we'll get a more stable signal.
Well, I'll just keep saying what I'm saying while you sort that out. I'm saying that Scotland uniquely shows it's against a lot of stuff that the British want us to believe, i.e., Argentina is the big bad bogeyman. No, they're not. We celebrate Maradona's hand of God. Get it right up, geez. You know what I mean? It's that kind of attitude that
Yeah,
we must, well, not we must, but we always have maintained over the years. This thing we
yeah.
don't take.
It,
We don't want to
it's become
absorb this.
part of the folklore, the banter, hasn't it?
It's part of our culture, Gordon. It's part of who we are. We don't want to be animosity driven by hating people all the time. That's what England does. It creates enemies. Scotland goes, wait a minute here. We were over in Argentina, World Cup. They were great people. Do you know what I mean? We've got
Yep,
connections all over the place. We don't
yep.
want to have enemies. Why would we? You know?
Believe it or not, I know you find this hard to believe, but I actually have cousins in Argentina as well. Not
Yeah, you're all over the place, Gordon.
true. Yep.
Well, read Don Roberto, the great the guy that went over to Argentina and became the greatest horseman over there. He was from Scotland.
Wow.
Don Roberto.
It's. I
Here's
think
another
it's
one, Gordon. Here's
sorry
another one.
that
Um,
it was believed that a Scotsman brought football to Argentina as well, but I'm not sure if that's an apocryphal story or not.
no, it's true.
Yeah,
It's true. And Brazil.
that's what I thought. Yeah.
Two
Oh,
places.
good,
One was
good.
back. There is somebody will contact us in the pages
Yeah.
to tell us who that was. But we brought the passing game to their
Yes.
countries, and because of the heat, you used the ball more than you used your own efforts because that was the passing game. It's too hot to play football. They do in Scotland because they're running about in mud fields.
Yeah, the
No,
tempo be lower. Yeah.
yeah, use your close skills and then pass the ball diagonal pass, and that's the passing game. Was taken by Scots to Argentina and Brazil, and there's statues in both places to these guys.
Excellent.
Back to the questions, the
Okay.
correspondence. I think EU. There's so many this week. It's incredible. I think EU and UK would love a war, but Russia has been betrayed in negotiations by US bad actors, and EU again and is set to take the Donbass. This will have repercussions. Russia is not our enemy, or even Ukrainians are enemy, but they will fight and have amazing weapons at their disposal. We need to get the facts and the discussions out in the open. P.S. Russia economy doing much better than any of those on the West. Fact. Russia and China against these warmongers are trying to save us from ourselves as well as secure their countries. The race to independence is so important so that we stay out of this.
Well, the Russians believe, according to Medvedev, I think one of their spokesmen said the other day, that the Russians believe that the West is trying to break the Russian Federation up into micro-states or mini-states that can then be absorbed into the European Union and the Western world. And that is apparently what is driving the Russians at the moment against the West, is this idea that they see a threat to the integrity of Russia and having it split into smaller states because its economy is wrecked, and so
Yeah.
it has another one of these Maidan moments where people rebel and it fractures again, like it did in 1991. And I'm not sure if it's true, but this is what the Russians claim is one of their beliefs, that's what they're fighting against and what they're fighting for. Personally, I think using Ukraine, as a battlefield to prove a point is callous in the extreme. The Ukrainians have not done anything to provoke this. In fact, they gave up their nuclear weapons in order to achieve peace with the Russian neighbours, and it hasn't worked. It's had the opposite effect.
No. Last one, Gordon. This affects you, I'm afraid. This bit of correspondence, but I'll let you tackle it.
Okay.
James Mason says, "Yeah, it would be a Turkish barber you went to. Don't go out your way to go to the indigenous Scottish one. Typical Scottish nationalist." I think this
Okay.
guy gets it totally wrong on a number of counts, but I'll let you get him, Gordon.
That is such a petty comment. I don't think I would dignify that with an answer.
I
Because
will. I will.
Well, to reply to this guy would be to make his comment legitimate. And honestly think he's just a shit stir because he says at the end, typical Scottish nationalist. So that implies that the guy who's making the comment isn't a nationalist. He's a British state actor.
Yeah.
And
I think he highlights something really coherent, is that this poor fella has been colonised to such an extent he doesn't know who he is. And that's colonisation. The other thing is,
he does know who he is, and he's a British actor.
Well, if he's Scottish, you could argue that he's been colonised to such an extent that it's going to take longer for him rather than me and you to be dragged out.
Turkish barbers, for God's sake.
Right, let's get to the body of the Kirk. Let's talk about what's really happening here, Gordon. Craig Murray, he's defected to your party, they're called, Jeremy Corbyn. What was your initial thoughts when you read that?
Initially, I was taken aback because I thought that Craig was pretty firmly in the Scottish independence camp. And when he announced this, I'm thinking, right, let's go back a few years and look at Craig's history as a member of political parties. And when I looked back, he has jumped ship at least 4 times in his career as a political speaker. He's always been trying to get elected in different parties, mostly socialist parties of some kind, workers' parties and so on. And so this behaviour isn't unusual for him, but the timing of it is really bizarre. I mean, why do it now exactly? When he nailed his colours to the mast, at the SSRG and also at the UN, to suddenly say he's going to join an English party headquartered in London, run by Jeremy Corbyn. I mean, it tells me that he's very much a socialist and that's his colours, fine. But why join Corbyn's party? I just don't get that.
Well, do you know who I think will be the most distraught guy, unhappiest guy out of all this? Alf Baird. Alf Baird has written the book. Alf Baird has done the research. Alf Baird has concluded that post-colonial theory determines that you don't move into the lion's den, if you like. You do it from within. You don't go asking. You take. And what's he doing? He's gone back to ask. Now, where are the headquarters of your party going to be based?
Yeah.
Where's the branch managers going to be if they've got leaders? They're going to be same as Labour, same as Tory, same as. And what you might find, Gordon, is they'll call themselves the Scottish Your Party. Your Scottish Party, they'll call themselves.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Yes.
Yeah,
I'm sure
what's the difference between that and the Scottish Labour Party?
Well, the thing is, Larry, we have to look also at Jeremy Corbyn's pronouncements about independence. And in the past, he's been against it. You and I both know this. He said so in as many words. According to what I've seen, and it's not very much on this Your Party, which is very much in its infancy, it seems to be agnostic about independence. It's not supporting it, but it's also apparently not opposing it either. But it just seems to be balanced on the fence.
No, it's not on the fence, Gordon. I was asked by Craig Murray on X. He says he looks forward to seeing the post that Jeremy Corbyn is anti-independence. a quick Google search, and I got it. And I
Yeah,
said to him, tumbleweed, nothing back from him. I thought he would come back and say, well, he's changed, he's got a new train of thought, he's understood the parameters, he's maybe felt more. Nothing.
I I get the distinct impression, based on Craig's previous history of being in various political parties, that he's always looking to get elected somewhere, anywhere in any parliament in the UK, either Holyrood or now Westminster. And I think that is why he has joined your party, in the hopes that he might be selected,
Gordon,
to
is
become a
he a
candidate.
fraud?
He must be, because, as he said himself, he has a prison record, a criminal record, and
So
because of that,
sorry.
bar him from office.
No, it can't. Exactly. So is he a fraud? Is he an actor? Is he an infiltrator?
It seems to go. I mean, he's an intelligent man. I just don't understand how he thought this would go uncommented, unobserved, if he just joined Jeremy Corbyn's party. It makes no sense to me. And when things make no sense, my spider sense starts tingling, and I'm thinking, this is anomalous. This is completely abnormal. This is the way I felt when Nicola Sturgeon didn't fight for independence after we were taken out of the European Union.
All talk. All talk.
Yeah, and I felt that feeling at the back of my neck. Something's wrong here. I don't know what it is with Craig, and I don't know why he's done this. I hope he's not a bad actor. I hope he's not acting to basically destabilize the whole movement. But that's the effect he's had.
Here's a couple of things, Gordon, to mull over. If you're going to the UN and you're like Craig Murray, he's in the UN, so is Alf Baird, and they're on radio stations in the States and they're talking about Scotland's position and all the rest of it. You would have thought by that calculation, he's in the UN, he's now talking to UN members about Scotland's colony.
Yeah.
Why has there not been any connection between the UN and Scotland where we are now? You would have said, I'm delighted to be have spoken to blah 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 from the UN C24 committee in the corridors of the UN, and they are delighted that Scotland has taken on, asked them to look at our case. There is nothing from the UN side that we can hang our hats on. Nothing.
No, not yet. I mean, the
Not
story.
yet. Gordon,
No,
he's been in the UN. He's been
no,
sitting there talking about New Caledonia and how
I'm not.
bad it is in their condition.
I'm not. I'm not disputing that, Noddy. What I'm saying is that the original plan, as it was described to me, was to shape the battleground. In other words, fighting for New Caledonia was a way of preparing the ground for fighting for Scotland's decolonisation as well. It hasn't happened. You're right, and it should be. And according to the plan, as I understood it originally, they have intimated their. This is the group that went to the UN for Scotland. The idea was to intimate that they were going to submit a request to have our status changed, and that substantial document is not finished yet. I spoke to
Really?
Sarah Salyers about 2 weeks ago, and she said to me she thought there was about 2 years of work in it to get it all together, because it's so enormous.
Come on.
Really believe that, because I've seen such a big body of work already, both from Sarah and Alf and other people. I can't
No,
believe it would take another 2 years to get that together. It
no,
might take
it
2 years
wouldn't, God.
for the UN to actually react to it, but I don't think it'd take that long to prepare it.
If you've got a connection, a step in the right direction into the UN, they would be looking at this and going, blimey, this is good. This would bolster the UN standing, working for Scotland. This would do their street cred a lot of good.
Well, let
Scotland's
me
a
ask,
big area. It's got
no,
oil, and there's nothing, Gordon. There is nothing.
no. One of the things that I think we should ask is, what's the reaction from the UN? Because Craig Murray was being touted as Scotland's de facto ambassador to the UN, right? That was how he was being presented.
And Gordon, when he can't do that,
But now he's
when he
joined an
can't do that, he knows fine he's going to be asked questions about the UN. We've started asking him on this show.
Well, this
He
is
knows
my
fine.
next point. My next point is we need to speak to Craig Murray and ask him
No, No.
Are you still the UN representative for Scottish decolonisation and our efforts to do it? Because at the moment he's tight-lipped. He's not said anything.
Gordon, that tells me everything. When the heat comes on him, he's making all kinds of excuses, but going to the your party. He's going back to feather his nest in the comfort of the British system. He's back there because he can't handle it. It's because there's so much pressure on him. And I don't think he even realised the pressure that would be put on him from podcasts, from people taking a real interest in where Scotland's going. And if you can't stand the heat, he's out. And that's what's happened.
You think he's maybe reacting to the massive support that he received and all of the messages that he must have got after he gave that speech at the UN?
It's almost like, Gordon, if the Scotland manager football team, it's a manager is selected, you get behind them. When they start losing games, you start to, was that a good appointment?
But
Who is this guy?
You don't expect your leader to suffer from stage fright and back off and then go and join a British party in London. That's the last thing you would have expected him to do. And that's why I think it's so dissonant. It just jars. It doesn't make sense. And when something jars that much, that always makes me suspicious, whether it's justified or not. But I always do feel suspicious when something as bizarre as this, as contradictory to his previous position, when that happens, all of his credibility disappears down the drain.
Yeah.
Whether intended it or not, but that's the effect it's had, and it is damaging. And we need leaders who, when the spotlight turns on them, and they have the support of the movement. That's the time you need somebody who's going to stay there and fight for it, and not disappear off to London to join some other party. That doesn't make sense to me at all.
It's funny, Gordon, isn't it? It's funny because at the same time, Murray decides to defect and ergo leave the UN route because he doesn't believe in colonisation anymore. Two other things have happened this week that, if you connect the dots, and this is what I love about Gaslighting Gilligan. If you haven't heard of Gaslighting Gilligan, read the guy's stuff. He predicts all this and he tells you how it's all going to manifest itself. He's been in the army for 25 years. He knows how structures and positions happen. And he was saying that ultimately there's going to be a war. Operation Yellowhammer was written by Boris Johnson. And somebody on the comments wrote about this as well. I missed it because we're getting carried away with something. Yellowhammer highlights the fact that because of Brexit, a hard Brexit, they thought would see the whole of Britain going mad. And to quell that, they had Operation Yellowhammer. Now, read it and tell me Keir Starmer's not actively looking at Operation Yellowhammer right now because he's in such a pickle. And the other two things, we've just seen the voting in the Scottish elections next year to be stopped on the day and counted the next day. That is a window for corruption.
Did you notice the timing of it? The timing of it came after a gigantic poll which predicted that the SNP would win a small but outright majority. That's just in the first votes. And that was what the polling was saying. And as soon as that came out, suddenly the rules of voting changed almost the next day. Yeah. And as you say, instead of the count being done there and then, on the day of polling, it's now being moved to the next day. And those ballot boxes are going to sit somewhere. Who's guarding them? How secure are they? You know, and this has a lot of reverberations to the way the 2014 referendum was conducted, when ballot boxes were shipped to England to be emptied and counted there. Why were they counted there? We know there were shenanigans. We know that there was vote stuffing, and nobody commented on it. Nobody objected. Nobody challenged.
So we're at this point, Gordon, and I contest what you're saying about the SNP. They've seen them in the polls. I think it's something worrying them even bigger than that. It's the list. The unionist vote is collapsing. Reform, Labour, they might not get. It's a Liberate Scotland campaign that's going on right now that's winning the hearts and minds of Scots because it's taken us back to 2014 on the Yes campaign. Independence, nothing less. When these guys get into that parliament, you can see fireworks. That's what they're afraid of. And if the people elect them to put the fireworks in, they must stop that. And by hell, they will stop that by having fire alarms at the polling stations. They'll have what else? They'll have mass floods going in, and you can't. Oh, we've lost all the votes. We'll have a fire. We'll have this. There'll be all kinds of calamities. Why? So that the real vote cannot be counted, and Scotland cannot get its own way. This is a danger. Third thing that's happened: they're moving barracks up to Inverness. And the people of Inverness are saying, what the is going on? What is going on? And what they're trying to do is they're trying to create another war in Scotland to separate us. Celtic and Rangers, those two teams are going down. They're on the way out. They've got old, football's, they can't use it anymore as they once did for their dividing rule. What can they use now? I know, put the migrants up there. I think it'll fail, Gordon, for two reasons. Because Scotland's a welcoming country, and Scotland doesn't believe this bullshit. I told you about the Argentinian scenario where we wear Argentina shirts. We don't buy into this, but we're going to be under severe pressure. We're going to be under severe pressure when these people are in, because the media will flood us with it. They'll put stories out about them being mad rapists and child killers and all the rest of it, and they'll get one, and they'll tag them with something, and they'll put them in jail, and they'll go, "Told you so." This is all scripted. We can see this coming.
Well,
here's the thing, Gordon. Here's the one thing, and then I'll let you back in, because the people up here are saying we've got ex-army people on the streets suffering from PTSD, suffering from shell shock, homeless. Why couldn't they get in that place? Why couldn't you put money together and home these people who are struggling after serving the British government? Yeah. It is a joke, Gordon, and it's another thing we've got to worry about, because what they're trying to do is the red ants and the yellow ants, they won't fight each other, but you stir them up and they'll start fighting.
Two things. One thing is that these military bases in Scotland are British territory. They're not Scottish anymore. They stole the land and they've planted their seed there. They've planted their little fortresses there. And so the British government and the Ministry of Defence think they can do whatever they like on those sites, and we just have to lump it. In other words, they're going to plank thousands of migrants. Usually these will be asylum seekers who haven't yet had their cases heard, and their whole status is up in the air. Nobody knows whether they're going to stay or not. But the English people don't want them down where they are, because that's where the migrants have been amassing. They want them shifted as far away as possible from where the British vote is, which is the southeast. And the nearest place, well, the farthest place they could put them, where there's a military base available, is Inverness. And Inverness was a garrison town by the British state at one time, and there's still the remnants there. And they will use any of these military establishments that are defunct to dump people in the Scottish population. They don't give a toss how it affects the local.
Yeah, I get all that. I get all that. But we're coming to a point, Gordon, where 2026, by everyone's reckoning, is going to be a massive election.
Yeah.
If we can't recognise, we know what they've done in the past. They'll put up things up here, Doonray, Gunard, poll tax up here. They'll test us out and they'll push us to the limit. That's what they do. But they do it at strategic times. Now, I'm talking about the timing of this, when we've got a 2026 election coming up. But by anyone's measure, this is going to be a test for independence. If they can stir the nest up here and get us focused on immigration rather than independence, that's their trick. That's what they will try and do. And I think it's more a case of that rather than just shipping them up because it's Scotland.
No, but what they're doing, Nori, is, as you say, they're importing an English political problem into Scotland to make it seem that it's our problem as well.
Yes.
When in actual fact, it isn't. It's just
not.
It's been dumped in our laps. by the British state because they don't want to deal with it, and they would rather Scotland felt like it was our problem as well, that we have a problem with migrants. We
No,
don't
we
have enough
don't.
to do things at the moment as it is. But these migrants, nobody knows who they are, or what they are, or what they've done in their past lives in their original countries. Why were they kicked out? Why did they leave?
Yeah,
There are a lot of
why are they given special dispensation to move to Scotland? But we know already from the Park Hotel in Glasgow that was used as a housing.
asylum
These
hotel.
people were treated like dogs. They had £22 a day or a week to survive on. And when the Scottish Parliament, and it was the Greens actually said, look, we're going to give free bus travel to the migrants. And everybody
Okay.
went up in arms. Oh, that's terrible waste of money, da. But it was a choice of getting to go out, get out of the hotel, and meet other people from their own country in Stirling and come back again. That was all it was. We're getting horrendous conditions for these people, and we're going to be made to hate them, Gordon. I can't stomach that. I just cannot stomach that.
In that military base in Norrie near Inverness, it's going to become a concentration camp. That's essentially what this is.
Yeah.
It's a concentration camp for unwanted migrants in England. They don't want them there. So they dump them there. They'll probably deny all of their asylum applications and then ship them out. But it's going to be a concentration camp for them. As they come in, they'll be funneled up there. They'll get booted out and flown back. And this is just going to be a revolving door of
But the
migrants
thing, what
through
we
it.
said earlier in the programme, Gordon, is important as well, because we were talking about in the correspondence, the English are going to come up here in their droves for houses and
I'm not
the.
so keen if there's asylum seekers living next door to them
Well,
in
see,
a
this
camp.
this is this is the thing. This is the big docking point here, Gordon. Is this creation, libertarianism, war and greed and money and profit, is it going to collapse because they're trying too many things and now these forces are working against themselves rather than with themselves?
Well, you've
Because
asked the
if you're right, and the English people come up here and go, fucking hell, I'm
oh,
back down the road.
yeah. Well, think about it from this point of view. You mentioned at the top of the show how deeply unpopular Keir Starmer is. He knows his coat's on a sugary peg. So he's panicking. He's reaching out for ways to deal with problems that will make him popular. And
Yes.
getting rid of migrants from the southeast of England, he thinks is going to make him popular with the voters there. And I bet you any money that this entire plan to put those asylum seekers at that barracks in Inverness will fail, simply because it's a desperate act of a desperate prime minister who doesn't know what to do. He's not
But
thought he's not thought through the consequences of any of it. It's just a desperate way of buying votes. That's all I think this is, and I hope I'm right.
I think you're right, Gordon. But one thing he hasn't counted on, but I think secretly he does know, that the voice of the Scottish people will not be unheard on these matters. Even if the
No,
political parties don't want to take part in this. The people of Inverness are out in the streets right now, really upset, talking, even in Drumnadrochit, people are talking about this. It's a disgrace. And the positive thing about all this is they're looking at it from both sides. Who are these people? Where do they come from? Do they come from Palestine? Do they come from Syria? Do they come from Libya? Where do they come from? Where are these people? We have
that's the thing.
no idea. They could be poor souls. And you know what, Gordon? Here's it. Once this is really important because how do we know that what one out of that 400 people isn't a bridge builder, a doctor, a physician, a lawyer?
Exactly.
We don't know.
And we never will know as long as we are a part of the British state because they're not going to tell us because it's
Correct.
British Ministry of Defence and it's the British Foreign Office or whatever it is that deals with these things, and it's all top secret. It's all kept down in the halls of Whitehall. We're not allowed to know. You just have to put up with it,
Yeah,
like everything else they dump up here, nuclear
I know.
weapons, all the unspent missiles, bombs, and rockets that they had left over from wars getting dumped in the sea just off our coast. All of that stuff. We're just a huge bin for English problems, and that
Yeah.
has to stop.
That has to stop, Gordon. You're right. And you know what? We've come to the end of the time. 59 minutes. That flew past today. Or maybe have to cut back on the. We're getting so much correspondence. We'll have to maybe pick the 10 best or something,
Yeah.
because it's using up our time, and we didn't get as far into the Craig Murray story as we thought. But there's next week, and a week's a long time in politics. But
Well, I'm going to try and contact Craig and see if I can ask him what his motivation was for joining this party in England, and what does he think the effect's going to be of his actions on the Scottish independence campaign? How is that going to help?
well,
See,
we tried on X, and I know him as well. He's unnervous. He's nervous. He's
uh,
nervous, and he's keeping a low profile. And now he's taken to talking about Palestine and raising money for a crowdfunder. He's gone
well,
totally away from the topic that we're wanting to discuss this morning.
in that respect, he has a lot in common with Jeremy Corbyn, because Corbyn's wife, if I remember correctly, is from the Middle East as well, and she has a strong connection with Palestine. So they have that in common, and maybe that's the reason. Maybe he's trying to buddy up with Corbyn for that particular campaign. I don't know. We'll
Who
find
knows, Gordon? Who knows? It's bizarre, isn't it? It's just, but we've got to wake up as a people. Read Gaslighting Gilligan. He explains all this in his book. And Johnny McNeil, we need to get him on to chat. Maybe three of us on at a programme sometime. See what he says.
Like I say, he took his lead from Noam Chomsky, who's
Yeah,
famous for who came up with the whole idea of states owning the media and using the media to control the population, and that was revolutionary when Chomsky mentioned it. But other people have taken up that mantra now, and we know it, and everybody knows it, that the media is powerful, and that's why
but
we're here. We're trying to counter them.
Gordon, can I just leave you with this message?
Go
This
for it.
podcast is powerful. There's people out there who would want to see us not do this. I can assure you that. They
Mm,
don't want us talking about the things that the Scottish people want to hear, but they don't want the Scottish people to find out about. But
yeah.
we'll do this as much as we can. And I know somebody doesn't like my style. I talk over you a bit, Gordon, and sometimes you talk over me, so I get that as well.
You really?
Listen, that's tiny. The message, the message that we're putting through is so powerful that watch and honestly, seriously, this might be taken down. We don't know, Gordon, what things are at play here. But
Don't you give them ideas?
no, they've already got their ideas, Gordon. That's why they're cancelling the counts till the next day. That's why they're bringing up migrants. That's why they're taking back their man, Craig Murray. And that's why we need people to like, share, because the more that the people who watch this see, oh, they're getting 5,000, they're getting 10,000, they're getting 20,000. These guys are onto something. We'll have to
Yeah.
change tact, but it's too late. The genie's out of the bottle. We're already talking. We're already discussing. We're telling people what's happening, what's real. What's real, Gordon? That's the most important thing.
Well, the other thing, Nori, is that our numbers keep growing. I've been watching to see just how Haud Jaiket is doing in terms of its audience figures. We're busting the 3,000 views virtually every week now, and it'd be nice to get it up to 5 or 10,000 or more.
We're a
I know
country
it's,
of we're a country of 5.2 million, Gordon. 3,000 is nothing.
yeah.
It's a stone in the pond. We have to grow and grow and grow and get more people looking at this and asking questions of us. Where'd you get your information, guys? How do you know all this? Ask us.
Yeah.
Tell us,
And
and we'll tell you where we get the stuff from.
yeah, and also, I would also chin your MP and your MSP on the doorstep, or write to them and
Yes.
say, what are you going to do? Are you going to endorse the Salvo campaign for liberation? Are you going to look for new status for Scotland as a colony? What's your position? And just keep hammering away at them until they get sick of it, because eventually they will have to come up with a policy position. And once you know that, then you know what you're dealing with. But unless they do it, I think that the political parties of independence will lose support, and they'll keep losing it because they're not doing what they're meant to be doing.
Well, somebody said to me, Gordon, what's the point in voting for a devolutionist party or a unionist party?
Yeah, there is no point. I mean,
It's up to you.
voting it almost seems pointless because of
Yeah.
this. It shouldn't be like that, you know.
No,
Anyway, listen, we've got to
I've got
this
to.
up. So I
I've
just
got a busy day ahead of me, Gordon. I've got to fly. Lots of things to do today. I'm being treated. I'm being taken to the Eden-Car Theatre tonight to see a band called Staran, Staran. Google them. But I want to do a programme with you, if I could, Gordon, at some point in the future, about how our youngsters are getting shafted by the music industry. And it's damaging our culture. It's damaging us as people. It's a big, big story, and it deserves maybe half an hour of our time talking about it.
sounds good, Nori. But listen, let's wind this one up and just remind everybody to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell so that you know when we're going on air. And we'll see you all next Friday at 9:30.
You will indeed, folks. Take it easy and enjoy your weekend. I'm off.
Okay. Thanks again, Nori. Have a good weekend, mate.
Thanks,
See you
Gordon.
soon.
All the best, mate. Cheers now.
Thanks everyone for watching. Bye for now.